Uber last month announced it would lay off 3,700 full-time employees, or around 14% of its global workforce, as the company continues to struggle in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, Uber's ride-hailing business has dried up as a result of widespread shutdown orders due to the pandemic. Now, joining me to discuss this is Harry Kwachi-Davis, who is Senior Logistics and Distribution Specialist with Uber for Europe, Middle East and Africa. Great to have you on Business Live tonight. So let's begin with what the effect has been of the COVID-19 pandemic on your business. We're hearing about layoffs of about 14% of your full-time employees across the world.
Thank you so much for having me on your
sound check. Harry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I want you to elaborate on the sort of challenges you are facing during this time of the pandemic and the effect it has had on your operations.
Yeah, so we've got close to almost 7,000 employees that have been impacted by the impact of this COVID-19 pandemic. And you can imagine that it is tough times for the business, yeah. The rides business lost revenue by 80%. And so it was imperative that the business took strategic decisions to make sure that the company would run. And that meant that there had to be some job cuts. So it really affected most of our ComOps teams and most of our HR colleagues as well. But then as the pandemic went on further, it actually affected all other businesses. And so our Uber Jump bike and scooter business had to be sold to Lime. And then also it had a toll on the Uber Freight business as well.
Okay, our audience, I believe right now, will be wondering, how about Ghana? I mean, it's across the world, but can you talk about the situation here in Ghana as well?
Yes, there's been a big impact because, again, there's the closure of airports and borders. And this is actually one of the areas where our rides business thrive. And then there's the lockdown as well. And so, again, with regards to Ghana, there's lots of restrictions that have come in on how the Uber model operates now. You cannot take more than 3 persons in the car. And so it means that you can only have 2 persons in the back, inclusive of the driver. So again, it will have an adverse effect because we had just a few number of drivers working. We had our Ghana-based lockdown. And so, yes, it has really impacted on the operations in Ghana because we are trying to put in health and safety measures to protect consumers as well as our driver partners as well.
We'll come to protection of consumers. So what do you anticipate to be the long-term effect of the COVID-19 pandemic? For instance, the ride-hailing business has taken a hit because of the restrictions that were imposed as a result of the pandemic. And so I'm sure that you are exploring other brands and how to, enhance them.
I reckon that once we had a dip in our rides business, our Uber Eats business actually had a triple surge because now people were locked down in our home and restaurants were shut down. People couldn't go into public places. And so everybody resorted to buying online. And so our Uber Eats business actually tripled. And one of the partnerships or ways we had to support our restaurant partners was to waive off the delivery fees. And so between a certain period during this pandemic time, we made sure that the delivery fees were waived off for consumers, same as for the restaurant partners as well. That way, the financial challenges and the burdens that already was having an effect because there's a dip in the number of people coming out to buy food and then people not going out, to socialize more. So it had a big effect on our restaurant partners, but people resorted to buying online. And so we had to onboard lots of new restaurants. And so the Uber Eats business actually is doing fairly very well now.
Okay, and so let's talk about the ride-hailing business because that is very popular here in Ghana. And so we're hearing news that Uber is offering financial help to drivers. Do drivers here in Ghana benefit? What kind of assistance are you offering them?
So what Uber did as a business was to take care of or pay for the health services of drivers that were impacted by the COVID. If I say impacted, it means these were drivers that were actually affected by the coronavirus. So Uber paid Uber gave a 14-day bracket, and so paid for some sort of like 14-day leave and paid drivers for them to be able to help with their hospital costs, etc.
Okay.
But generally, it was not as in giving something to drivers because they're sitting at home, but we actually paid for drivers that were impacted or had the virus directly.
What do you think would take for your business to recover from the hit it has taken? And you know, right now there's talk of a potential second wave of the virus spread. Are you prepared for that as well?
I don't think anybody can really prepare for any pandemic that's going to come. But one of the key things that we've aligned ourselves is to make sure that the health and safety of our driver partners as well as our consumers are paramount. So we are putting in safety measures when it comes to the rides. We are sending face masks. We are actually having the selfie, we're having the selfie system where drivers would have to take a selfie to make sure for us to check if they really have the face masks on. We also want to make sure that we provide these drivers with all these safety requirements. You know, just that way they're able to protect themselves and at the same time able to protect their consumers or customers in the rides.
But how effective is that mode of monitoring where the drivers have to take selfies? Because you know, you can't always tell if they are compliant, and the health and safety of the customer is paramount. How are you ensuring that?
Yeah, so most of the time, health and safety is a responsibility for both the consumer and the driver as well. And with this pandemic, we've seen how a lot of people have panicked because most of drivers didn't even want to work. So we believe that there's going to be a lot of awareness creation and education about the pandemic, making sure people are using hand sanitizers, making sure people are using the face protections as a key prerequisite. And then this next step further would be to ensure that people are really adhering to this. And so we use a selfie, and this is actually being used in advanced countries. But if you cascade it down to Ghana, we try to make sure that I work in logistics and I've shipped a lot of face masks and PPEs, and then this is being delivered across the globe where we have a presence.
All right, thank you so much for joining us on Business Live. Harry Kwachi-Davis, he is Senior Logistics and Distribution Specialist with Uber for Europe, Middle East and Africa. Great to have you tonight.